welcome to another episode of Tuesday Tea with me, your host, Sweet D. And today, very, very special guest with me, Lauren Kennedy is here. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm very excited you're here. Mainly because, so first of all, Lauren and I, we don't know each other yet. Like, you guys are getting a sneak peek right into us meeting each other, which I think is really fun because someone from Lauren's PR team reached out to me to come on the podcast, and right away I was like, yes, we need to chat. This woman, I can tell we're gonna be friends because there's so much in common. She is just a master marketer, and so it's going to be fun. You guys are going to learn a lot, and because I don't want to miss a thing, I'm going to dive into her bio. Okay, here we go. Lauren Kennedy is the founder and chief marketing nerd of Coastal Consulting. Considered a unicorn in her field, Lauren is a technical expert in Salesforce and HubSpot and a strategic marketer. Lauren founded Coastal Consulting to create a space where people come first, and that means a robust benefits package, continuous education and development, and a people-first approach to serving clients. Coastal Consulting's growth rate as a HubSpot Solutions Partner ranks in the top 1% of partner agencies as they trailblaze a better way for organizations to succeed with marketing automation. Yeah. I love it. For those of you listening, you know I'm like really big into automation because we have lives and we need to move on with our lives and be able to think bigger picture and not have to do every single little thing. And I know that HubSpot is one of those pieces of software, parts of the puzzle that can absolutely help clients really get back to working on the business rather than in the business. So I want to ask you, Lauren, first of all, what drew you to marketing?
I started off my career thinking I wanted to be an attorney. I've always had a really strong sense of right and wrong. And after I shadowed a law firm, I felt that I didn't see the passion that attorneys had for their career. And that probably had something to do with that specific law firm. But I've grown up around really passionate people, so I didn't think that was going to work. So I started with English because I love to write, didn't find that super challenging, and landed with psychology as my degree in college. And so I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology and just became fascinated with why we make the decisions that we do, and how consumers make decisions, how brands build loyalty from childhood and on, and the psychology of Apple, for example. And from there, I went in to get my master's in business and found that marketing really was the business blend of psychology, because without an understanding of your customer, without an understanding of purchasing decisions and why they happen, you're not going to succeed as a marketer. And as I got into the marketing industry, I saw how companies were not leveraging the data that they had. And the more that I dug into that, the more I started to discover marketing automation and everything that we do. And I feel like I've found a way to make marketing black and white, because marketing is very much a gray space. And now marketing automation, there is a right and wrong, because your automation is either working or it's not. So I've combined all of my passions of knowing people and being data driven and having a right and wrong, and found a nice niche in marketing automation.
Wow. Very well said. Marketing is a gray space. Totally. It's so blanket. And I don't know if you have found this, but I've spent the better part of my career really educating people and letting them know that, hey, I'm not the stereotypical used car salesman here. Like, marketing matters, data matters. And it's fascinating to me that I know with my clients, they almost never, before we started working together, they almost never look at their analytics, their data. And it seems so silly to me. It's like, how can you possibly make any sort of decisions and ways you're actually going to conduct business without the data? Like, it's right there, right? Well, so how did you find HubSpot specifically? What drew you to them and becoming a partner?
During my first internship, I actually used HubSpot, and I used it during my first full-time job. So if you want to talk about building brand loyalty from an early age, I had HubSpot at my first career and continued to use it throughout. And whenever I went to organizations that were not using HubSpot, I very much became an advocate internally for us to start, and naturally began almost selling HubSpot internally to get buy-in, and started pulling people into HubSpot and bringing organizations on board if possible. There are a few compliance requirements. I worked for financial services and we couldn't use HubSpot for that specific reason. But if that wasn't a factor, HubSpot was at every job that I was at. It's always been ever present. And so I really liked HubSpot because it didn't make me feel dumb. whenever you start using a new platform, you often feel like, I have no idea what to do in this platform. I have no idea how to use this. I just like super lost. And whenever you get into HubSpot, it's very much like opening a new iPhone, like you know what to do. It's very intuitive. I very much feel like they're the Apple of email marketing, of being able to go in and just seamlessly do things. It just makes sense what you should be doing in there. It's not overly complicated. We are also a Salesforce partner, and we consult in the Salesforce CRM, and like our specific niche is integrating Salesforce and HubSpot. And our organization is focused on people first education. So when we look at our systems that we're using, we want them to be people first as well. And HubSpot very much is, and that it's designed for a person, not a tech wizard. And so we like to take Salesforce, which is a very robust, complex system, and make it people first and combine it with HubSpot to really give marketers and sales the best of both worlds. And that's what drew me to HubSpot, is how easy it was to learn and how complex it's grown over the years. They're really invested in development and listening to their customers and like building features in a timely manner. And it's just an infectious platform from my experience.
Well, let me ask you this. How does it compare with another CRM? And really quick, for those of you who aren't familiar with what CRM means, it just stands for customer relationship management. What is a CRM platform for the people listening that don't quite know?
So the best way that I explain a CRM to a new audience is whenever you're on a website and you're going to find information about them and you submit a form, whenever you submit that form, you probably receive an email in your inbox. And tools like HubSpot and Salesforce are what makes that possible. Because whenever you submit your first, last name and email on a form, it then goes into a system that's called a CRM. And from there, the sales team or whomever is on the back end can build off of that profile. So as you go through and look at maybe a different shirt or something different on the website, that is cataloged in the CRM. And that is how organizations are able to like retarget you with like the ads you see on Facebook, or send you a coupon in the mail that's relevant. So the CRM is really the data engine that the company uses to be able to create a better experience for the consumer.
How does it compare against another system like Infusionsoft?
Other systems are really robust and can do a lot of really cool things. My experience is that HubSpot distills their features and capabilities to what really drives value and makes them accessible. So for example, I've used Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is the big Salesforce sponsored email marketing platform. And you can do a lot of really great things with it, but you need to know how to write things like AMP script, which is a Salesforce version of code that is not super user friendly. But in HubSpot, if you need to personalize, you can do the same level of personalization by like dragging a property into an email. Like they make the most value driving parts of marketing very accessible. And so they reduce that barrier to entry. And like, as I've seen other platforms that are similar to Marketing Cloud or Marketo or Infusionsoft, there are more barriers to getting your email out the door. There's more barriers to acting on your data. And so I've found that HubSpot really distills it and makes it easy for your everyday marketer.
What size business does someone have to have or be at the level in order to use a software like HubSpot?
HubSpot is great for if you have 5 customers or if you have several million. So HubSpot is a staged platform where you can start for free. You can grow up through their starter, professional, and enterprise plans and grow with it. That's actually HubSpot's value prop, is that it's the platform that grows with you. And their statement is providing a better way to grow. So unfortunately, the perception on the market is that HubSpot is just for small businesses. That's kind of been their reputation. And I completely disagree. The organizations that we work with are usually $50 to $300 million a year in revenue, and I wouldn't consider them small businesses. So HubSpot is really flexible and can grow as you do. So as soon as you have a list of people to manage, or a list of customers to follow up on, or people that you need to call, or tasks you need to log, like HubSpot is a system you should be using, or some CRM. And like, a big symptom that people have when they realize it's time for a CRM is they have a spreadsheet that they keep tracking. And if you have a spreadsheet that's a list of people, you need to get into at least a free version of some CRM.
Very good advice. Yes. I've seen like stacks of paper handwritten. Here's my email list. I'm like, oh no, let's get this automated, please. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good advice. So all the way from 5 to endless. Just okay. That's I didn't know that. That's good to know. Let me ask you a little bit about customer data gathering. So with you as a marketer, I'm sure you're completely aware of the different privacy policies that have come into play thanks to Apple. And now, on the Facebook side of things, them trying to catch up as fast as possible with privacy policies being put in place all over the place. And what is your take? Do you think differently at all as a marketer now, where you're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be pixeling everything. Maybe that is a violation. Or do you think differently on that at all now that these new policies have been put in place? Or is it just kind of like, another day?
There's a really fine line between collecting data for manipulative purposes and collecting data for the benefit of the consumer. So if we look at Amazon, for example, like Amazon provides an amazing customer experience. They're not selling sweaters and paper. They're selling products that will arrive within 48 hours max at your door. And the way that they're able to do that is through a really complicated logistics system. And I've heard, you never really know, but I've heard that there's an algorithm that like can predict when you're about to buy something, and they'll move it to a logistics center closest to your house. And the technology there is very much AI driven, and they have a ton of data, and nobody really cares if it's for their benefit for the most part. People are like, okay, well, my experience was easier, so however they made that happen is fine. So I think that a lot of times the data gathering is the end justifies the means to some degree. However, I am a very big stickler on permissioning. I am very firmly against purchase lists. I'm a big champion of GDPR and rolling out GDPR-based protections at any level. And for reference, GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation, I believe is the full term, that the European Union rolled out a few years ago. And it basically means that you need explicit opt-in in order to contact someone. Whereas CAN spam and other laws essentially say that you need to not have explicit opt-out to not email someone. So like, instead of just like passively saying you have their consent, they have to actually say, here on this date, I give you consent to track me, to email me, etc. And that was really the big trigger for all of these additional privacy laws, is when GDPR came out, because it threw a ton of organizations off balance because of their protection they had to roll out. But for me, the type of data that I track in my industry is very much like your ad engagement and then what you did after you clicked an email for us. So my end of the data tracking spectrum is after you've already given us permission to track you, either via your ads and your email. So I'm not involved in like the data scraping of the internet. That's not really my sector.
Got it.
But as a consumer, I'm usually fine with it.
I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that, because I know there's a lot of like mastermind marketers where we've all come together to talk about these things. Like, maybe we do need to start doing things a little bit differently. Because I originally got my start in online marketing doing Facebook ads, and we're talking $8 million, no problem like that for a client every month. Like, it was nothing. And we were constantly getting like a 2x return on whatever we were, whatever we were selling for them. And just the amount of data we had, it just felt like this great, I knew at the time, this is like maybe 12 years ago now, we felt at the time like it's a great responsibility, but what do we do with this data now? And so it was all about priming the pixels. Now that these new things have come to light, it's like, do I want my data out there like that? It's funny. It's just funny thinking about it as marketers, looking at it in a different light. It feels like a 50-50 split. Some people are like, whatever, we'll just keep doing the same things. We'll abide by the privacy policies. And others are like, their businesses are tanking because that's entirely what their platform was on, right?
Yeah. And
it's a weird world.
I also think that speaks to the type of data that they're tracking. So like for me, if somebody's tracking the types of shirts that I'm looking and they refer to me to like a better shirt on a Facebook ad, love that. If they start tracking like personal health information, no, I'm not a fan of that. And I also think about how I think a lot of the tracking that you do, I think bubbles up to how you track the success of marketing. So if you look at marketing as a top of the funnel lead generator, data scraping and data mining and a lot of that becomes more important. And whenever you look at it as a revenue engine, where we're looking at like the final conversion rather than the first, that's usually happens after they've engaged with your brand, which is more where I live in the revenue engine world. So I think that becomes a lot less important in my stage of the funnel, because we're looking at how do we create really great content that converts? how are we
For the
communicating
user.
specifically with these people? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's all about knowing your customer personally and first party data rather than second and third at my
Very,
stage.
very good. I love how you put that. Yeah. I mean, everything that we do, it all comes back to knowing your customer, knowing the buyer, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So I want to know more about your consulting firm, right? What you do specifically. And so tell us more about how you decided to start a consulting firm, how that all came about. Was it with a partner, by yourself?
So in March of this year, I decided that I was ready to leave corporate America and start my own thing. I did not really set out with a long-term plan. This is kind of a vague idea that I had in the future of I'd love to go out on my own and start a business. So on March 2nd, I decided to do that and filed for an LLC. And essentially, I've been a freelancer for a few years. And so I decided, let's be a freelancer full time and see what happens. And what happened was I quickly like over overbooked myself and like went over my bandwidth and hired my first employee in April. So
Wow.
very
Fast.
quickly, very quickly hired my first employee. And from there kept growing. And in July, we moved up to 3 full-time employees and 1 pretty full-time intern. And we're hiring another full-time role at the moment. So we've grown very quickly. And the reason that we are growing is because we are offering a service that seems to be in high demand at the moment. What we do is very niche. A lot of HubSpot partners, a lot of marketing agencies in general are very much full service inbound agencies, meaning they'll help you with email, they'll help you with ads, they'll help you with your website. They help you with the full spectrum of marketing. And while there's a lot of value there, we wanted to be very niche because of my specific specialization, where we focus on integrating HubSpot and Salesforce.
Mhm.
So while our clients may need help in the other areas, we can usually pitch in. We're all ex in-house marketers. So we've been on a marketing team before where you're scrappy and picking up different areas. But our true value prop and what we really provide for clients is making the HubSpot Salesforce integration approachable and breaking down the barriers of what makes Salesforce complicated, the hiccups it has when it integrates with HubSpot, because maybe a little bit techie here, but there's a different data model between Salesforce and HubSpot. So you need to make sure that those are aligned whenever you integrate them. And so our job is really to fix it for them. But our unique value prop, I would say, is that we also teach them how to manage it long term. We very much believe in sharing knowledge. And so as we go through, we're not just fixing things for our clients and kind of taking care of things behind the scenes. We're walking them through what we did. We're providing a lot of documentation on how to do it themselves later and becoming kind of like an educational partner and teacher along with the technical support team.
Love that. I love that you're doing the handhold. I think that's really important. I see
Mhm.
countless marketing agencies say, okay, we're going to do it for you. Here it is. Bye. And there's
Yeah.
no support. There's no support. I see that with a lot of marketers that put out courses too. It's like,
Mm.
where's the support aspect? So that's awesome. Yay. Yay for another good marketer. I love hearing that. So you started the business this year. How has that been for you going from like doing your own freelancing to becoming a leader? Because you're now a leader, you have a team. What's that like?
It's been interesting because I had a full-time job before and I freelanced on the side and I've always worked crazy hours. I would say that even now owning a business, I work less than I used to because I was straddling a full-time job and more than part-time freelancing. And so now I'm down to about 60 hours a week, which is temporary and why we're hiring, but it's been a really interesting journey. So I feel like I've always had natural leadership qualities, which I feel like is something leaders don't say. However, I do think that that is true. And as I've gone through, I haven't had any traditional like leadership functions in a company. Like I'm very early in my career when it comes to corporate America. So I've been a leader from a flat peer level more so than like a manager. And so going into this role, the hardest part has been almost the imposter syndrome that comes along with I don't have management training, but I do feel as if I'm a strong leader. And so I also don't have training on how to run a business because unfortunately school doesn't teach you that. So my strategy and like how I've grown has very much been what's the next best decision, what makes the like most sense for my team. And so I've made sure that like as I grow and like as I look at being a leader, like the lens that I evaluate all my decisions through is what makes sense for them, what makes sense for us as we grow, what makes sense for their personal development. So that's kind of been my guiding compass. But as being a leader, I feel like the biggest thing that I've had to learn is how to actually start doing the stuff that I've said. So whenever you're sitting with your peers at a company and saying, gosh, it's so annoying when management does whatever, and actually making that change. So putting a hard stop to, this is how companies trend and we're not going there, and this is how. And being super intentional about every decision I make, which is kind of exhausting to be really intentional about everything.
Yes.
However, I'm being super intentional about everything because to me, people really are what makes a business. Whenever you leave an organization, you always say like the hardest thing to do is to leave the people. And the best thing about working there was the people, unless you worked at a really terrible place, but 9 times out of 10, it's the people. And creating a place where the people are first and our policies and our direction is really important to me. And I've found that as long as I lean on them and make sure they're getting everything they need to from me, that being a leader is fairly easy because they come back at me with what they need, they surface what they need, and they fully trust me and vice versa. So as we build those relationships and like I become like a mentor and a leader more so than their manager, I found that that's been really successful.
Wow. Can I come work for your company? No, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. Well, let's talk about making sure that you hire people and not roles, right? I think that's pretty important. I know I've done that throughout my career only after hiring, the role, and it did not pan out. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because it sounds like you're surrounding yourself with some really passionate people. I mean, I can just tell by the way you're talking about them, you want more for them, and you're constantly making these really just sound decisions, not only for you and the company, but for them as well. So what's that like? Did you hire people you knew? How did you go about finding your team?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. And this is actually something that I am spending the most of my mental energy on right now. So yes, everyone who currently works for me, I knew before I started this business. And
that's normal in the
yeah,
beginning.
it's normal. And no, none of them started it with me. I started it myself. However, throughout the past few months, I've slowly added to the team from people that I know. And that's a bit of a pain point for me because it's not scalable to just hire people that you know, because eventually you run out of people that you know how to do what you need them to do. So what I'm looking at now is figuring out hiring for the first time. And I did hire someone recently and had to end that relationship very quickly. And so that definitely has added to the nerves around hiring because I did hire more so for skill set than culture, and it didn't pan out how I hoped it would. So as I look at filling that role again, because I really do need the help, I'm making sure that I'm hiring a little bit different this time. And so I think that what's challenging to me is I've always been a perfectionist and I get things right. And going through the hiring process, there's really no map. There's a lot of people that lay out a map, but it doesn't necessarily work, especially not when you're hiring full-time employee number 4 for a very small organization and you're brand new. And also we have a pretty niche specialty, so finding the right person. So hiring has definitely been what keeps me up at night as far as being a business owner, because people are so important to me. And hiring people is an incredibly large responsibility because you're taking on them and their livelihood and making sure that they're taken care of. And like, you're essentially pulling another person into this like little team. I don't say family because I think that's kind of a toxic thing to say about your workplace, but your little like unit that you've created. And so while I am people first, I'm also my people first when it comes to hiring. And so as you become my person, I also protect you. But until then, like, we are a unit and we're going to like make sure that what we are building is maintained because we're all so passionate about why we work in this environment and why we've taken this risk and why we're here. So when I look to hire, I'm trying to hire someone that is very different from me, that is still a cultural fit, because I think that being a cultural fit has become a word that people are kind of like ugh about in the market, because they're like, you're just trying to hire clones. And when I say cultural fit, I mean someone who fully embodies the fact that we're people first and that wants to be an environment that grows with them and invests in their personal development and will give them everything that they need out of an employer, in return enforcing that themselves. So looking at their team, looking at people around them and being people first in the way they behave. So I have not worked in an agency before, but the reputation is being cutthroat and stealing projects from one another and hoarding information. And if somebody else knows it, then you're expendable. That's not going to exist here. And so finding people that fit that and want that enough to champion that internally is challenging. And it's that, so something that I say a lot is that I'm unconditioning my team. So we've all come from environments we felt was broken. And so I'm unconditioning them to unlearn what they've learned. Like I have a team member that really wants to be strategic. And whenever she came on, I said, you can be strategic. Anything you want to do, anything you want to plan, like just go forth and do it. And she didn't really act on that because in previous roles, she'd been told that she can be strategic as well, but was shot down continuously. And so I kind of had to train her how to be strategic and how to take initiative because it had been trained out of her. So there's a few other examples of that on my team, but I very much look at myself as a reverse conditioner of like, okay, we're actually going to be an environment where this is okay. And this is how you do this. This is how you take initiative. This is how you just do something without getting approval and just enforcing that this is what we're going to do here and not making the mistake of just slipping back into where we came from.
And I think it's amazing that you obviously trust your team enough to make those decisions. That's why you hired them, right? So getting them to trust themselves and follow that intuition that they have and what's going to be the right call. I think that's very good. You're doing everything right. You're doing an amazing job. Have you ever considered, as far as the hiring process, having your team speak to the new potential person first before you do?
Yes, that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. I think that's the only way to make it work in a small setting like that. You know, it's like, you guys have to get along. So you guys first. Yeah. That's where that method of hiring has worked very well in my business. Like, you guys tell me what you think. And then at the end, I'll say yes or no. But yeah. Oh, you're doing a great job. And not a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, this keeps me up at night, but thank you. Just thank you for being so transparent about that, because it's true. There are these things that I think we consistently think about, but we don't talk openly enough about it. Of like, this is what's happening as a leader. Here I'm trying to find the clients. We got to keep revenue moving. And on top of it, handle company culture. I've worked in a couple of different environments where the company culture just absolutely sucked, for lack of a better word. It just was miserable. And I actually wrote an entire chapter about company culture in my book. And what was comical about this is, as I'm writing this chapter, I realized that my company culture sucked just so royally. Like, here I am giving this advice and I'm not like doing it myself. And so I had to go back to my team and ask them, are you happy here? And it was a 50-50 deal. They were like, yeah, some days. What am I doing wrong? When I hear that you're doing this right out of the gate, well done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done. You're leaving a big positive impact on all these people's lives that you're helping, not only from a marketing standpoint, but for your team. So yeah, it's been, I always tell them that I'm incredibly grateful that they took this leap of faith for me. Like, I very much look at them working here as a favor to me, more so than the other way around, because they chose to put their trust and their income and their livelihood in me and my ability to make this business work. And so I very much look at my employees from a place of gratitude, more so than your revenue drivers or anything like that. Like, it's very much like, thanks for taking this journey with me. Yeah. And one thing that I can throw out there as advice for leaders that I learned from Tristan on my team is the concept of a work love language. This is something that I had not thought of before, but she's really sharp and thinks very differently than me, which is why I hired her. But the concept of figuring out how your team like gives and receives praise is really valuable, because for me, I have my words of affirmation. Like, I like for my team to say like, thank you, you did a great job, or a client to say something like that. And Tristan is gift giving. So Tristan responds to, here's a gift card, you did a great job. So last week she had a really tough week of hiring and interviewing. And so I had a t-shirt delivered to her house on Friday evening that was like a nickname that we have for her internally. We had a shirt delivered to her, and that like made her whole week. Even though it was a tough week, she left incredibly happy and fulfilled because we cared enough about her to give her a gift. And so if you can figure out how your team receives praise and find ways to give them praise in that way, it goes a long way. Because if I just gave her words of affirmation and she doesn't receive it that way, she feels like I'm never appreciating her. So
that was super smart that she brought that to my attention. And I have found that to be super valuable.
Very, very good. I think gift giving not only important, but to make sure it's the right gift, right? Like for you, you knew she
Mm-hmm.
would appreciate the shirt. If someone
Mm-hmm.
gave me a Starbucks gift card, I don't drink coffee. That would be lost on me. Small things like that. In fact, I remember just a couple of years ago, I was working with a company, great company, but we didn't have a lot of time to develop personal relationships. It was just kind of in passing. We worked together on a project, and they sent me a Thanksgiving ham. Like,
Ooh.
what? Now, ham, great. For someone like it's like for a family of like 9 or 10 or something. It was a huge ham, but I don't eat ham, right? So I gifted it to someone else in the company and they were super happy about it. But yeah, gift giving it's a true art. So yes, find out what that love language is about how someone receives praise. And it's fantastic advice. You're awesome. I really wish that we could just keep talking all afternoon, but I want to be very respectful of your time. And I know that you have graciously offered an incredible gift for the listeners. Can you tell them a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So part of our company is we go in and look at our clients' HubSpot and Salesforce accounts before we get started. We have an audit that we sell on our website where you can hop on there and sign up with our team. Our turnaround time is 10 business days, where we essentially log into your HubSpot account or log into your HubSpot and Salesforce account and kind of dig through all of it and let you know what's wrong, what would be better, what we could do to help you, or provide you a roadmap to do yourself. It doesn't require that you work with us in order to get the solutions that you need. We can just implement them for you or not. And so we're extending 10% off to all listeners to come and get an audit.
Amazing. It's a huge gift. I will be sure to have a link in the show notes for that. You can use coupon code TuesdayT to get 10% off that audit. And if people want to work with you directly, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Find us online at coastalconsulting.co. It is CO, not COM. Or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. It's fun getting to know you. I want to have you come back and we'll dive deeper into company culture at some point. So thank you. All right, this has been Tuesday Tea with Lauren Kennedy. That is it for this one. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss an episode. And if you'd like to connect with me directly, follow me on Instagram, where you'll get daily business tips and continued encouragement. See you there.